Hello book lovers, welcome to Uncommon Reader. My name is Daniela. In today's video, we're going to talk about The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. This is my first buddy read of the channel, and I read this alongside Reney of Beyond Books, and I will also link her video in the info box for you to watch after this one. And this was a good match for us because Reney is reading a few banned books this year, so I look forward to hear what she has to say about her experience reading Anne Frank. And I have the Italian version here, a beautiful actually edition filled with handwriting and photos of Anne as well, and also of her family. Very beautiful edition. This was by wt5il editor, and I had bought this book probably like a year and a half ago. I was planning to go to Amsterdam and visit the Anne Frank's house and museum. Unfortunately, when I got there, I got sick, so I spent probably like 3 days in the hotel. And after I got better, the visits were sold out. So I actually managed to go back this year, and I did visit the secret annex where Anne was hiding with her family and the Van Pels family, plus another man, a doctor, a dentist, Dr. Feather, that joined them a bit later. They went into hiding on July 6th, 1942, after the day before the police came to their house looking for Margot, which was Anne's elder sister. She was summoned by the SS, so Otto, Anne's dad, got pretty scared, and he was also already considering to go into hiding with his family because of course, the many deportations that were already happening after the Nazi invaded Holland as well in 1940. So reading this book after I visited the Anne Frank's museum was an enriching experience because I could picture Anne, what she was writing in different rooms. But if you go to annefrank.org, you can actually get a pretty good sense of what their lives was at the secret annex. And you can learn all the history from the timeline of their staying and their capture, the diary, of course, and more information on the main characters, not only the people in hiding, but also all the people that helped. And first, I'd like to acknowledge especially Miep Gies, or Gies. Unfortunately, I don't know exactly how to pronounce her last name. She was working for Anne's dad, Otto. She was a pivotal figure. Miep, her husband, and colleagues helped the Franks and the other people, providing them with food, which was increasingly scarce due to rationing. They brought books, clothing, medicine, and of course, plenty of diaries for Anne to write her memories on. And they would even throw little parties for them and providing gifts on birthdays and religious holidays. Unfortunately, on the morning of August 4th, 1944, an anonymous informer reported to the Gestapo that people were hiding above the Opekta offices. And so that's how they discovered the families, and also they arrested all the people who helped them. Fortunately, though, Miep was set free because the officer that arrested her was Austrian as she was. So she was set free, and after returning to the apartments, she found Anne's diary scattered on the floor. So she kept them with her until the end of the war. The only survivor to the war was Anne's dad, Otto, and so Miep was able to give him Anne's diaries, and of course he was an important figure to have them published, and also helped to put the museum together. And of course you can find all these informations on the museum website. At the same time, I found out that Miep also wrote a book that I would love to read, and it's called Anne Frank Remembered. I hope they have it at my local library, but I would love to hear from her words and how it was for her that experience. I would also suggest you watch a documentary from BBC, which I found here on YouTube, called Anne Frank's Capture and Her Diary, an interview with Miep, so you can see her speaking about that experience so many years later. So I'm going to read you a few notes that I wrote while reading, and then I will also share some entries of her diaries that I found particularly moving and interesting as well. So with these diaries, we witness such a profound transformation of Anne, because when we start reading her diary, she sounds very frivolous, carefree. She's a 13-year-old, right? So of course she will be very light in her nature, but still quite sensitive. The growth, though, we see her going through was quite exponential. It can clearly notice a shift also in her writing. It becomes progressively more profound, introspective, observing the adult's behavior and also her own behavior. She's most critic of herself as well as the adults, and very opinionated. This trait never changed from the beginning to the end. She's very opinionated. I was actually taken a little aback at the beginning, because the first diary entries are very simple, and maybe I was a bit confused because she would address these short notes and letters to different people, and I was like, who is this person? I don't know, maybe like friends' names. And later on she just decided to write to her diary, which she names Kitty. So as an observer, she was very, very interested about the different personalities of the people that cohabited the house with her, and it wasn't an easy experience for everyone, of course. So they were in hiding, they couldn't go out, so tension would sometimes build around the house. She also writes about her struggles, of course. What shocked me the most was her opinion of her mom. And I would say, besides a few episodes, she always has a negative opinion of her mom, and she won't shy about it. And in fact, I was quite shocked sometimes to read what she would say about her mom. She actually was in awe of her dad, and that also shifts a little bit later on, just because as she, I think, forms a stronger personality during the captive days. I think also she feels not understood fully by her dad, and she really doesn't expect her mom to be, but a bit disappointed about her dad taking maybe her mom's defense and maybe paying more attention to Margot. So we see a few bitter pages, but also those situations how somehow makes her a bit stronger. In fact, from the inserts, and I'm going to read you, you will see what type of matureness she reached at only 15 years old. So let's dive into Anne Frank's diary right now. I'm going to read you an insert of what she wrote on Wednesday, January 13th, 1943. Terrible things are happening outside. At any time of day and night, poor, helpless people are being dragged out of their homes. They're allowed to take only a knapsack and a little cash with them, and even then, they're robbed of these possessions on the way. Families are torn apart. Men, women, and children are separated. Children come home from school to find that their parents have disappeared. Women return from shopping to find their houses sealed, their family gone. The Christians in Holland are also living in fear because their sons are being sent to Germany. Everyone is scared. Every night, hundreds of planes pass over Holland on their way to German cities to sow their bombs on German soil. Every hour, hundreds or maybe even thousands of people are being killed in Russia and Africa. No one can keep out of the conflict. The entire world is at war. Even though the Allies are doing better, the end is nowhere in sight. For us, we're quite fortunate, luckier than millions of people. It's quiet and safe here, and we're using our money to buy food. We're so selfish that we talk about after the war and look forward to new clothes and shoes when actually we should be saving every penny to help others when the war is over, to salvage whatever we can. The children in this neighborhood run around in thin shirts and wooden shoes. They have no coats, no caps, no stockings, and no one to help them. Gnawing on carrots to still their hunger pangs. They walk from their cold houses through cold streets and even colder classrooms. Things have gotten so bad in Holland that hordes of children stop passerby in the streets to beg for a piece of bread. I could spend hours telling you about the suffering the war has brought, but I'd only make myself more miserable. All we can do is wait as calmly as possible for it to end. Jews and Christians alike are waiting. The whole world is waiting, and many are waiting for death. And by the way, I wasn't reading from my book, which is in Italian, of course, but I found an online version available to everyone, so I will link that in the info box. The next entry I'm going to read, it's from February 23rd, 1944, and this is addressed to Peter. I'm not sure she gave this missive, but she writes in her diary. Peter is the son of the Van Pelt family, and they had a little friendship together, a little love. We've been missing out on so much here, so very much, and for such a long time. I miss it just as much as you do. I'm not talking about external things, since we're well provided for in that sense. I mean the internal things. Like you, I long for freedom and fresh air, but I think we've amply compensated for their loss on the inside, I mean. This morning, when I was sitting in front of the window and taking a long, deep look outside at God and nature, I was happy, just plain happy. Peter, as long as people feel that kind of happiness within themselves, the joy of nature, health, and much more besides, they'll always be able to recapture that happiness. Riches, prestige, everything can be lost, but the happiness in your own heart can only be dimmed. It will always be there as long as you live to make you happy again. Whenever you're feeling lonely or sad, try going to the loft on a beautiful day and looking outside, not at the houses and the rooftop, but at the sky. As long as you can look fearlessly at the sky, you'll know that you're pure within and will find happiness once more. How deep is this? I mean, 15 years old. Amazing. And here's an entrance from March 7th, 1944, which it clearly shows how she realizes how much she has changed. Dearest Kitty, when I think back to my life in 1942, it all seems so unreal. The Anne Frank who enjoyed that heavenly existence was completely different from the one who has grown wise within these walls. Yes, it was heavenly. 5 admirers on every street corner, 20 or so friends, the favorite of most of my teachers, spoiled rotten by father and mother, bags full of candy, and a big allowance. What more could anyone ask for? You're probably wondering how I could have charmed all those people. Peter says it is because I'm attractive, but that isn't it entirely. The teachers were amused and entertained by my clever answers, my witty remarks, and my smiling face, and my critical mind. That's all I was, a terrible flirt, coquettish and amusing. I had a few plus points, which kept me in everybody's good graces. I was hardworking, honest, and generous. I would never have refused anyone who wanted to peek at my answers. I was magnanimous with my candy, and I wasn't stuck up. Would all that admiration eventually have made me overconfident? It's a good thing that at the height of my glory, I was suddenly plunged into reality. It took me more than a year to get used to doing without admiration. How did they see me at school? As the class comedian, the eternal ringleader, never in a bad mood, never a crybaby? Was it any wonder that everyone wanted to bicycle to school with me or do me a little favor? I look back at the Anne Franks as a pleasant, amusing, but superficial girl who was nothing to do with me. What remained of that Anne Frank? Oh, I haven't forgotten how to laugh or toss off a remark. I'm just as good, if not better, at ranking people over the coals, and I can still flirt and be amusing if I want to be. But there's a catch. I'd like to live that seemingly carefree and happy life for an evening, a few days, a week. At the end of that week, I'd be exhausted and would be grateful to the first person to talk to me about something meaningful. I want friends, not admirers. People who respect me for my character and my deeds, not my flattering smile. The circle around me would be much smaller, but what does that matter as long as they're sincere? In spite of everything, I wasn't altogether happy in 1942. I often felt that I'd be deserted, but because I was on the go all day long, I didn't think about it. I enjoyed myself as much as I could, trying consciously or unconsciously to fill the void with jokes. Looking back, I realized that this period of my life has irrevocably come to a close. My happy-go-lucky, carefree school days are gone forever. I don't even miss them. I've outgrown them. I can no longer just kid around since my serious side is always there. I'm going to skip a few lines and go to the core of her thought here and her transformation during the second half of the year. I became a teenager and was treated more like a grown-up. I began to think about things and to write stories, finally coming to the conclusion that the others no longer had anything to do with me. They had no right to swing me back and forth like a pendulum on a clock. I wanted to change myself in my own way. I realized I could manage without my mother completely and totally, and that hurt. But what affected me more was the realization that I was never going to be able to confide in Father. And I want to read one last passage to conclude the video, reflecting also about her future. Anne knew exactly when she wanted to be a writer and also quite a feminist, because on July 13th, 1944, she writes inside many other notes, one of the many questions they have often bothered me is why women have been and still are thought to be so inferior to men. It's easy to say it's unfair, but that's not enough for me. I'd really like to know the reason for this great injustice. Men presumably dominated women from the very beginning because of their greater physical strength. It's men who earn a living, beget children, and do as they please. Until recently, women silently went along with this, which was stupid, since the longer it's kept up, the more deeply entrenched it becomes. Fortunately, education, work, and progress have opened women's eyes. In many countries, they've been granted equal rights. Many people, mainly women, but also men, now realize how wrong it was to tolerate this state of affairs for so long. Modern women want the right to be completely independent. But that's not all. Women should be respected as well. Generally speaking, men are held in great esteem in all parts of the world, so why shouldn't women have the same share? Soldiers and war heroes are honored and commemorated. Explorers are granted immortal fame. Martyrs are revered. But how many people look upon women, too, as soldiers? I believe that in the course of the next century, the notion that it's a woman's duty to have children will change and make way for the respect and admiration of all women who bear their burdens without complaint or a lot of pompous words. Anne Frank. Wow, what a remarkable young lady. That's it, folks. I am still kind of shocked from reading all these amazing words that Anne, only 15, and these were, you know, just a couple of months before she was captured. Anne Frank died of typhus and malnutrition, but luckily her diaries are still read all over the world. So I thank you for watching this video. I had a few technical situations with my phone being full, so I had to stop here and there to sort of try to clear up some space and keep recording. So I'm sorry. I got a little nervous while I was filming. I didn't know if I would come to the end. But especially because I was so emotional as well, taken with all these beautiful words by Anne. I invite you to go and look at Reney's video. That's what I'll do as well right now. I look forward to see you back here on Uncommon Reader next week. I'm not going to be out with a new video on Friday, but I might be back on Tuesday with another Tag Tuesday. How about that? I look forward to hear from you in the comments. Let me know what you thought about this read, and if you read it, what your thoughts about Anne Frank. Let me know. I'll see you soon, and thank you for watching again. Happy reading. Ciao.